You know, it's gonna be a red letter day if I'm having trouble with the internet, and I'm having trouble with the getting the countdown going. Um, Welcome everybody to an exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host Allen Ulrich here with Bob Rose. How you doing tonight, Bob?
I'm good. I'm good. Look, it's a little past the midway point of summer, so you still got beautiful weather, and now there's football in the air. So, it doesn't get much better.
There we go. I think I'm trying to boost my signal. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble. It's gonna be that kind of night. I can see it already. Um,
hmm
Bob, the rookies have reported to training camp, and several of the rookies, three draft picks. I think it was a total of six guys have been either put on the physically unable to perform list or the injury list. Panic has already set in on Saints Twitter. Um, Explain for the folks at home what is the purpose of these lists and what is the difference between the two.
Okay. First of all, folks, there is zero reason to panic. The training camp hasn't even officially started. So this is a perfectly normal move by NFL teams to put players on some sort of injury list to bring them into camp slowly. In most cases, they're rehabbing injuries, getting over nicks and bumps that might have been suffered during OTAs, mini camps, or post surgical rehabs. And there's two significant lists that teams use. They are, and the Saints, as you mentioned, placed five players, spread between these two lists. The first list is the NFI list. It's the non-football injury list, where the Saints placed third-round draft pick Kendre Miller, sixth-round draft pick A.T. Perry, and undrafted wideout Shaq Davis. Now, what the non-football injury list is, that's for players that have received injuries or are recovering from injuries that were suffered in a non-NFL venue. Usually players that are recovering from injuries in college, maybe suffered at the combine. When guys get in off-season car accidents, fender benders, you often see them open on the NFI list, things like that. They will count as a roster spot on the 90-man roster, but they can be brought off the NFI list at any point in time once they're medically cleared. The second list that NFL teams use, and this is the one that fans are much more familiar with, is the PUP list. That's the physically unable to perform list. That's used not only through training camp, but also into the regular season. That's for players that have suffered or are dealing with injuries, or health issues, that might have been suffered while within an NFL team. Again, you're talking about maybe a player that comes in overweight. You saw that under the old format a lot. Maybe a player that's rehabbing, an off-season surgery, a veteran doing so, or a player again that was injured during a mini camp or OTAs. The Saints had placed fourth-round pick offensive lineman Nick Saldiveri and undrafted rookie cornerback Anthony Johnson on the PUP list. Now, this is the common misconception. The PUP list, if you start the regular season on the PUP list, you miss, now it used to be 6 games, but now it's a mandatory 4 games. During training camp, the same rules often apply as with the NFI list. If you start training camp, on the physically unable to perform list, you can be brought off at any point in time once you're medically cleared or systematically cleared by the coaches. Now, the difference is Once you are on the physically unable to perform list once during the year, you cannot be put back on. So, for example, Nick Saldivari, he's dealing with a calf injury that he suffered, in OTAs. He's on the PUP list, as we mentioned. Once he's cleared and brought back off, if he suffers another injury that's going to keep him out an extended period, the Saints will not be able to put him back on the PUP list, regardless of when it happens. He either goes on injured reserve, be it short term or long term, or they just keep him on inactive if we're into the regular season. Hopefully that clears it up a little bit for you guys.
Yeah, and that's the big thing too. Is that it's procedural things that you have to take advantage of the way the rules are written, and people just don't know that, and they think that they can just pull players on and off of lists as they need it. This is actually a good thing because that means there's no pressure for Nightwell. There's no pressure for these guys to come in right away and play. They can come along a little more slowly, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I just think that people kind of hit the panic button way too fast around here when it comes to some of the moves that the Saints are making. It's not. There we go. It's not the doomsday that everyone thinks it is. This is not. You're not losing people for the season. You're not having guys coming in injured that you don't already know about. Bob and I talked about earlier off the air. Condre Miller. I think we both think it. I think either the injury happened during the Michigan TCU game, or it happened right before the Georgia game. I don't remember which one it is either. But you're talking about a guy who had a knee injury 8 months ago, 7 months ago. So yeah, he has been rehabbing. We knew this is why he didn't practice in the OTAs. This is why he wasn't doing anything in the mini camp. This is all part of the rehab process to have him come along slowly. Good. All right, I'm back. Is trying to come back. Okay. But anyway, what I was saying right before we lost our internet, yeah, people just need to relax. That these are things that the team already knew about. These are not new injuries. The second thing is the rookies have come in this week. The veterans are coming in a week from today. Why do you think they have the rookies come in this week?
Not every team does this, but a lot of teams do. I think it's a good thing. It gets the rookies, and first year players are eligible too. It gets the rookies a little bit more acclimated to training camp, and mainly the training camp routine, especially the meetings and things like that. And just generally get themselves settled in. Before the veterans come in and you hit the ground full steam a rolling. And that's what's going to be happening. The veterans, as you mentioned, everybody reports for the New Orleans Saints next Tuesday, July 25th, with the first practice, unpadded, but still the first practice, mostly being a walkthrough the very next day, July 26th. So to me, if I was the coach, this is the way I would run it too. I would want my rookies in a little bit ahead of time to, again, just get them acclimated and settled into a routine, so that way they're not as overwhelmed when the full training camp process starts.
Exactly. Yeah, your goal is to get them to understand this is how we practice. This is where your meetings are. This is the time that you're going to have between meetings. This is where we eat. This is how much time you have to eat. This is where you're going to stay for the next month. It's not like how it was you're looking at a hotel. So this is how you get picked up and brought back to the facility. You're not driving your car. We have buses. This is where you line up to get to catch the bus. This is where when you come in, this is where you report in. This is all the things that you need. It's an orientation, basically.
Mhm.
And it's an orientation that teams have to, that players should go through, especially when you're doing a training camp at your own facility. Then when the veterans come in, you're kind of up to speed what's going on. You're not, they can't mess with you, from the standpoint of, oh, yeah, your meeting is next door. Go around
Right.
the stadium, old Zephyr Field. Go around the stadium. Go knock on that little building right there, which is a police station, and ask
Right.
them where your meeting is. You can't do this to them. I mean, I would, but they're
Right.
not going to fall for that. So,
Right. Yeah, and
uh,
don't forget the team. The annual team snipe hunt is Tuesday afternoons at 4 o'clock.
exactly. Get go catch you a bucket of steam and bring it to me. Go get your, go get me left-handed wrench, that kind of thing. You can't pull those games on them. Um, my favorite. And this is years ago. This is when I was working in the offshore supply vessel. The guys on the boats would tell me they do this to new deckhands. They wrap them in aluminum foil, make them hold this rod out on the end of the boat to go tune the radar. They make these guys stand in a circle to go tune the radar. So
I mean, as long as they're not
yeah,
doing it in a
hazing's fun.
lightning storm, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's why they're in first, and it's a good chance for the coaches to really work with these guys one on one in the beginning before the veterans come in, and you kind of get caught in that numbers game because
Mhm.
all the attention, all the focus is going to be on the veterans. So it's not like they're having practices right now.
Right.
It's the practices are going to start next weekend. I think the first padded practice is next Friday, the 28th. Let me look at my Yep, 28th. Yeah,
Yeah.
next Friday is the first padded practice. I think Saturday is the first practice that fans can go to. I passed by the Saints facility Monday, and they've already got the tent set up and the fans and for people to sit in the bleachers, and they've got the trucks out there that with the water and everything that they can sell. It's just like going to a game.
Hmm.
So they're gearing up for it. It's exciting. I mean, we now have football again. February. We have football every weekend until February. It's what, a week, 2 weeks before the Hall of Fame game. So anyway, um, so Bob, one of the things I wanted to talk about going into training camp this week, um, who the most important guys, most important Saints for this upcoming season. Not the best players, not necessarily the guys that you know what you're going to get out of them, but who are the 10 guys or 10 positions maybe that you think are critical players that how these guys perform will determine how this season unfolds.
And I did
And I
put
guess I wanted
together.
to go from like 10 to 1.
Okay. Are we each going to do our number 10 and then talk about, and then number 9 and talk about? Is that the way we're going to do it?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do that. Because if you
Okay.
give your list, I'm gonna give mine, and you may have covered everything already. So we'll talk about them both at the same time.
Okay. And first, like you said, I acknowledge players like Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, they're important year in and year out. But when I put together this list, I was mainly looking at who the Saints absolutely need big contributions from, other than those established stars. Who they need to rebound, who they're desperate to keep at a high level, and sprinkled in a couple of newcomers, as well, who's going to be extremely influential to the team. So with that, my number 10, I'll call it most influential Saints player of 2023. Number 10 for me was Cesar Ruiz. And Ruiz, we saw a guy who, the light switch finally came on last year. Played as good as we've seen him play throughout his first 3 years. Now, it wasn't enough for the Saints to pick up his fifth-year rookie option, but with as many problems, especially injury-wise, that the Saints have had on their offensive line, and that Andrus Peat at the other guard spot is going to miss at least a handful of games at minimum. Ruiz, if healthy and if at a high level, he gives a certain amount of stability to that offensive line, especially on that right side where Ryan Ramczyk his mobility is slowed significantly, if you ask me, because of some knee injuries. So Ruiz playing at a high level just solidifies the right side of that line.
Absolutely. I've got I don't have Ruiz on my list, but I do have Pete Werner on my list at number 10. Um, because we have yet to see a full healthy season of Pete Werner, and we're really counting on him now to step up and be that every down middle linebacker slash weak side. I mean, strong side linebacker. If they go, dependent, they go two or three linebackers, and it's tough because I don't know who the third linebacker is. So that also matters because is it going to be Zach Bond? Is it DeMarco Jackson? Who is that third linebacker going to be? Because that guy may have to fill in for Werner if Werner gets hurt again. So, Pete Werner we know can play when healthy. I don't know about his health. I think it's scary to rely on him for 17 weeks so that other linebacker, whoever that guy is, that's going to step up to do the Caden Ellis job. That we don't have a Caden Ellis this year, but that to do that Caden Ellis guy, I got to see where that guy is going to fit in, because it's Werner and whoever's the other person. That's really my number 10 guy.
Yeah, and Warner
9?
just missed my cut. Warner just missed my cut for all the reasons that you mentioned. He has been good in just about every category that you can imagine, on the fringe of very good. But he's not been a standout yet, and he's missed some time with injuries. And with Demario Davis also being 34 years old. You don't know when you're going to start to see a drop off from Demario. And with the lack of depth, lack of experienced depth at that linebacking core, Werner is going to be key. So, he just missed my cut, but he did influence my list for what it's worth. Now, number 9 for me is the only rookie that I try to avoid putting rookies on this list too. But I couldn't overlook putting the number 1 draft choice, defensive tackle, Brian Brzee. Because the defensive tackles for New Orleans have been just so bad the last 3 years. And, really, if I were to put this in a 3-way tie, it'd be Brian, it'd be Kalen Saunders, and it'd be Nate Shepard. But I chose to go with one guy, and that's the guy that comes in with the highest expectations. New Orleans needs some sort of disruption from their defensive interior this year. That's going to help the edge. That's going to help the linebackers, and that's going to make a very good secondary much more effective. And to me, it starts with your number 1 draft choice.
Well, I tell you what, I don't disagree with that. I have them a little bit further up my list because of those very reasons. And I'll get into that when we get up to mine because I agree with you totally. It is a critical need position because if that position is soft or there's a downgrade, and I thought last year was pretty bad, this team is in big trouble. I put the kicking game. I put Will Lutz and even Blake Gillikin, in on this one because Will Lutz is a little more important. Because if this team wants to win games with a strong running game and a great defense, it's got to win in the kicking game. And I mean, 40 to 49 yards was Lutz's worst area to kin. He's got to be able to hit those field goals. This I don't know if this team is going to go for it more on fourth down or not. But if it doesn't go for it on fourth down, it's got to be able to kick those field goals and make a difference with that. And I think this is a make or break year for Lutz. He took a pay cut to come back. They brought in kickers now to challenge him.
Yeah.
But to me, the kicking game is critical. If and the punting game too, because one of the things that we could always rely on Thomas Morstead was he was going to flip the field.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to win with defense, you need to have a defense that can make the other team go 80-plus yards. And if you're getting bad kicks, if you're just kicking and getting touchbacks and the net average is 20, 25 yards, that sucks. I mean, I never had to worry about that with Morstead. So I just feel like kicking game is critical right now. It's one of those things that's not a battle that's going to be reported on a lot in training camp. It's going to be something we're going to have to see in preseason. They'll probably kick it out of the stadium like he did against Green Bay last preseason. But I want to see consistent kicking, just like we saw from Morstead, just like what we saw in previous years, where we wanted to have a guy like Lutz and Gillikin out there. We need to see that consistency again. So, who's your number 8?
You made some great points. Yeah, you made some great points, and shame on me for not counting. I've written about it, but shame on me for not considering that when I put together this list, because that's going to be big, like you said. Number 8 for me. I cheated a little bit, and I went with 2 players here. Cornerbacks, Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo. Now, to me, Taylor is a bit more advanced of the 2 players, but they're both equally important. They both played great last year. Adebo struggled early on, came on at the end. Taylor had a slow start because of an injury. And then to me was a Pro Bowl caliber player at the end. Assuming you're going to get a healthy and focused Marshawn Lattimore, then Adebo and Taylor are going to get their opportunities because teams aren't going to throw as much towards Lattimore. Taylor can't afford a sophomore slump. Adebo's got a rebound from a little bit of an inconsistent performance last year. I've said to people over and over again, and I blasted sites like PFF and others publicly, because in my opinion, the Saints have the best trio of cornerbacks in the league with Lattimore, Taylor, and Adebo. But for that to happen, Taylor and Adebo have to continue to develop at the rate that they're developing. So, I went with a tie here at number 8.
Well, I'll tell you what, I did not have Taylor and Adebo on my list. I just missed the cut because later on I had Lattimore, and there's a reason why I put Lattimore on this list, because I feel like he is even more critical than those 2, because I can live with either one of those 2 as cornerback number 2 if Lattimore is healthy. But if Lattimore is not healthy, it looks a lot weaker. So I'll talk about when we get up to Lattimore. I'll go in more detail on that because this is a critical year for him. My number 8, believe it or not, is going to be Alvin Kamara, and I'll tell you why. Yes, we know that Kamara can do what he does, but we need to first find out how long his suspension is going to be, and secondly, the most important thing is, because now that you have Jamal Williams and now that you have Kendre Miller, you don't have the excuse anymore of not employing Kamara in the passing game. And that's where he excels. So I need to see, number 1, Kamara come back from the suspension focused, ready to play, and motivated. And secondly, he needs to become explosive in the passing game again. And I need to see those. Derek Carr raved during the OTAs of how good Kamara at running pass routes. He's saying things like he's not human.
Hmm.
You know, normal people can't run those routes. I need to see that in action again. I need to
Yes.
see those mismatches, and the Saints need to figure out, go back to putting him in space and exploiting those things. So that's why I said this is a critical year for Alvin Kamara. If he does not come back to his, let's say, 2017 to 2020 kind of form, where he was a productive, explosive player, Kamara could be gone after this year
Hmm.
because of that. So he is, to me, he's critical. So that's why I put one of the stars in this list. I've got a couple stars in this list here because there are some big question marks behind them.
Yeah, yeah, there is, and for all the
Who's your
reasons,
number
for
seven?
most of the reasons that you listed Kamara are the reasons why I listed Jamal Williams at number 7. Uh, Everything that you just said about
Okay,
Kamara, I
good.
100% agree with, right down to the point that if he doesn't produce enough, this could be his last year as a Saint. That's all contingent upon, yes, the third round pick, Kendre Miller, but more so the free agent addition of Jamal Williams. 1,000-yard back, unselfish player, had played all of his career prior to that since 2017 and shared backfield duties. So we know he's not going to gripe about the ball. Led the NFL in rushing touchdowns and gives this offense an inside the tackle presence they really haven't had consistently since before Mark Ingram left in 2018. I love Latavius Murray, but Latavius Murray was no Mark Ingram. Jamal Williams can give them that between the tackles, and if he's effective doing so, will allow that. Then there'll be zero excuse why Pete Carmichael, Dennis Allen can't use Alvin Kamara outside the numbers and more as a receiver. But Jamal Williams and also Kendre Miller, Taysom Hill, have to be effective between the tackles for that to happen. They need to have to. I've seen a lot of Chuck Muncie, Tony Galbraith highlights in the background tonight.
Yeah,
That thunder and lightning backfield. Jamal Williams needs to be the thunder for the lightning that Alvin Kamara brings. Pure and simple.
absolutely. Well, that's a 78 highlight season. I'm about ready to put on the 79 season. So I found these in my stash of stuff. So it's always fun. So you'll see even more of those guys. But yeah, I agree with you totally. Jamal Williams, it's critical because we know he's going to get suspended. Miller's probably not going to be up to speed yet. So Jamal Williams is going to be your bell cow. He's going to be the guy that's going to be running the ball 20, 25 times a game
Mm-hmm.
until Kamara comes back. He looked great as a short yardage back. He scored a lot of touchdowns, but you really, really need to see him become that number one running back like Mark Ingram was when Mark Ingram got his shot. And I think he's up for the task. Um, who do you have? Okay, let me go with my 7. I'm sorry. My number 7 is what you kind of said earlier with Brzee. I have Brzee, Saunders, and Shepard as all number 7 because all three of them have to be able to play and have an impact. I know Brzee is the number one draft choice, and we want to see what he can do, but those other guys have to be able to step up and play. And if Brzee is not quite ready yet, that's critical to me
Mm-hmm.
because if those guys struggle, or if those guys, dang it, try again. There we go. If those guys struggle and if those guys can't perform, it's going to be tough to keep Brzee in there for the bulk of the snaps.
Yeah.
Because you look at the history of defensive tackles, defensive linemen, even Cam Jordan, as great as he is, that first year they really struggle to make an impact. So you're relying on those two veterans to really hold down the fort until Brzee can get his head wrapped around the playbook, get his head
Hmm.
wrapped around the speed of the game and the tricks that they do in modern offenses. And then he'll be ready. I think Brzee makes the big step, obviously, in year two, but year one, it's Saunders and Shepard that really have to hold down the fort and be at a step up over Onyemata and Shy Tuttle. They have to step up in that position. So that's probably my biggest thing as far as those guys, those three positions. But because if defensive tackle, if we shut, then we're in for a long season
Yeah.
because this team needs to be able to shut down the run like it used to. Um, who do you have at number 6?
Number 6, I dusted off one of our old war horses. Cam Jordan. Hey, listen, Cam
Sorry, Bob, I
has
don't
the
know if you
most.
can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
Um, and Avery, I've spent a lot of time in South Louisiana, and I've done so in the summer. You and I are just built differently. You give me 100-degree heat, 90% humidity. I am honestly a happy guy. You can ask Alan. I am happiest when I got the sun beating down on me and sweat pouring off of me. So I'm good. Anyway, number 6. I dusted off an old war horse. I'm going with Cam Jordan. Cam, to me, is still playing at a high level, but we saw a dip in his statistical production last year. Now, you and I have both said previously that a lot of that had to do with the failures of the defensive tackles. They just they put too much pressure on the linebackers, on the defensive ends of this unit. But nonetheless, I mean, Cam is going into his 13th NFL season, more than any other player on the roster, more years than any other player on the roster. He just turned 34 years old. Happy birthday, Cam. You're always worried about a drop off when a player gets to this level. And, given the fact that you have a rookie on the other side, an unsigned rookie, by the way, in Isaiah Foskey, a guy that we both like in Carl Granderson, but Granderson is a good, not great player. This defense needs Cam Jordan to be great for one more year to be at that borderline elite level. And that's why I went with Cam at number 6.
I've got Cam on my list too, but he's a little further up because of the very reasons that you just said. He is, and I'll get more into it, but he is. We talk about the defensive tackles being a question mark. Yeah, if Cam Jordan suddenly gets old, this defensive line's in big trouble because I don't know where the pass rush is going to come from. I know that they can be able to generate one. It'll probably be more blitzes and things like that, but Cam has to be Cam. This will work. Okay, so the other one I want to bring in at number 7 is number 6. I've got Trevor Penning at 6. And the reason I have Trevor Penning in this one is because we gave up a lot to draft him. We gave up a lot to draft Olave. He has got to be. You cannot have another year of, he's your 6th offensive lineman. We've got some packages where he can come in and things like that. No. You can't. Anna's talking about Brzee. He needs to play because he's a first-round draft pick. Penning had his whole first year ruined with injuries. Uh, he had the toe injury, then he had the um, torn tendon in his foot at the end of the season. Um, he was already raw coming in. He needs to be out there practicing every week. He
Yep.
needs to be the starter on day one, and how he performs is based off of how he's supposed to look. What we thought we were getting out of college, a physical, nasty, dominating run defender
Mhm.
and a good pass protector. Because if we want to be able to run the football, and this team wants to run the football, there's my boy right there running the football. If we want to run the football, we've got to have a big monster left tackle that is blowing people off the line and making plays. I can't have another year of, and this is not a knock on James Hurst, but Hurst is a limited player. You know, um, I rewatch. It pops up every so often in my YouTube feed, but I rewatch that comeback against the Washington Redskins, and I tell you what, you watch that last, and this is 2017. You watch that last two or three possessions with Teron Armstead out there. Armstead, he came out with those two final Ingram runs in overtime. You see Armstead come out there, just take off, just totally destroy that poor cornerback that
Yep.
was coming out there, and no one's touching Ingram for 20 or 30 yards. I
Mhm.
need to see that. I need to be able
Yep.
to see those outside runs and Penning pulling out there and just leveling a guard. I mean, leveling a defensive back and leveling a linebacker so our running backs can run. And if Penning can't do that, if Penning struggles again or gets injured, the Saints are in trouble. I mean, there's no way,
Yeah.
there's
Oh
no
yeah.
getting around that because Pete's gonna get hurt. And I do not want to see a season where we're juggling tackles around because our
Mhm.
guards are hurt too. I mean, I want to see Penning look like the player we all thought we were getting.
Yeah.
So who do you have at 5?
Five, I went with another old warhorse, Demario Davis, and this has nothing to do with Demario Davis's performance up until now. Again, he's still playing at a high level, but
Mm-hmm.
Demario Davis is entering his 12th season. He's 34 years old, technically the oldest player on the team because he's a couple months older than Cam. For a lot of the reasons why you listed Pete Werner earlier is why I listed Demario Davis because of the lack of experience,
Mm-hmm.
depth at linebacker, the fact that Werner hasn't crossed from good to very good to great yet. Much like this team needs one more great year out of Cam, it needs one more great year out of Demario Davis to continue to be an elite defense. Again, I'm not suggesting we've seen a drop off out of Demario because we haven't. Uh, but you never know when it's going to happen when a player gets to year 10, 12, pushing mid 30s. It's inevitable that it will happen. It's only a question of when. Hopefully, both Demario and Cam, who I had at number 6, can coax one more really great year. For this defense, doing so will elevate the entire unit.
Absolutely. I've got DeMario on my list too. He's a little further up because of how critical his position is right now. But yeah, I agree with you totally, and I'll talk more about that too. My number 5 is actually Marshawn Lattimore, and it's only because to me they had, I think it was ESPN. Someone had like the top 10 cornerbacks in the NFL right now, and Lattimore wasn't even on the list, which just goes to show you
Shocking.
that he didn't get much respect before. Um, him being injured, I know. Him being injured just totally erases him from the list. And you can't, this defense is predicated on cornerbacks being able to match up one on one, playing on an island, going man to man defense with the safeties sort of playing single high down low to stop the run or single high with the safety kind of roaming to take care of the nickel back or the running back that might be coming out of the backfield. So there's the cornerbacks don't get a lot of help. My other thing is Lattimore has to show, and he has shown it, but I need to see it a healthy Lattimore full year, a fully committed and interested Lattimore when he's not playing a DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Brown, used to be Mike Williams. When he's not playing a top receiver, he has to show he's interested in still covering a so-so receiver, because that used to drive me nuts with him. You'd let a nobody get all these catches against you, and you own Mike Williams. Pretend like everybody's Mike Williams. I mean, so that's to me that's critical, because there are a lot of up and coming receivers who do play the Vikings again. DeAndre Hopkins just signed with the Tennessee Titans. They've got problems at quarterback, but with a pissed off Derrick Henry, because he's not going to get the big check, because Saquon Barkley's not getting the big check, Josh Jacobs didn't get a big check. We need all hands on deck to handle Derrick Henry. I need my Marshawn Lattimore to eliminate AJ Brown. Not AJ Brown. I'm sorry, DeAndre Hopkins. I'm still thinking, Brown's with the Titans. I know he's with the Eagles, but that's what I need to see. So that's my number 5. No, Foskey has not signed yet. Bob mentioned it earlier, but a lot of second-round picks have not signed yet. There's a bit of a disagreement over, I guess, how much guaranteed money he's going to get. Have you heard anything on this, Bob?
It is the sticking point. Nothing has come out official, but a lot of us believe that the major sticking point for Foskey and the other several second-round draft choices that have not signed yet through the league. It's not overall salary, folks, because that's slotted. That's slotted. There's no negotiating room for that. But Foskey and these other second-rounders, they want their signing bonus or guaranteed money pushed back till year 3 or even year 4 of the contract. What that does is that really locks the team onto the player. If they don't play well, they still have to pay them in year 3 and 4, when in years past you'd usually see them give up on a second or third rounder after maybe year 2 or 3 if they were bad. So that seems to be the sticking point, is Foskey and these other second rounders. They want their guaranteed money towards the back half of their 4-year rookie contract.
Yeah, and I almost put Foskey on my list, but I'll talk about him more when I get to Cam Jordan, because Foskey, I'll just talk about more when we get to Cam Jordan, because Foskey, there is an important thing about Foskey, but again, like the other defensive linemen, I don't expect big things out of him his rookie year. I expect him to be a rotational player right now. That's why he's not on my top 10 list. Sure. Who do you have at number 4?
Number 4 for me is Tyrann Mathieu. And listen, folks, I hinted around it all last season, but I'm just going to outright say it. During the first 10 or 12 games last year, Tyrann Mathieu looked as abysmal as the Jarris Birds and Brandon Browners and Jason David signings that the Saints have crapped the bed on in the past. But Tyrann Mathieu didn't get much criticism because he's from New Orleans and an LSU star. Fair? No. But fact, yes. Now, I will give credit for this. Tyrann Mathieu played much better over the last 5-6 weeks of the season, but he's key for this coming season. I would have put Marcus May on here, but I don't have confidence that May can stay healthy. Plus, May is facing a likely 4 to 6 game suspension, himself. That puts extra emphasis on Tyrann Mathieu to play very, very well this year. Tyron's an instinctive player, so I do expect a better play from him because he should be more comfortable as he's in his second year in the defensive system. But uh, because of May's absence and really a lot of question marks at safety beyond these two, Tyrann Mathieu is going to be key, absolutely vital for this New Orleans secondary.
It's funny as you're talking about safeties. I'm looking at Tommy Myers in the background doing all these illegal hits today, where he would just launch himself into people, just knock the crap out of them, you know. But he was an undersized safety, just like Tyrann Mathieu, and
Yeah.
he is now the Saints' number 2 all-time interceptor. So, yeah, I agree with you. I don't have him on my list, but he needs to play the way he played in the final 5 or 6 games versus how he played in the beginning of the year. He does have the only interceptions by the secondary
Yeah.
that's still on the team. The other two came from oh, I just forgot his name.
Daniel Sorensen.
The guy that nobody liked. Anyway, um, so my number 5 guy list, I've got Thomas in this list because we know what we have with Chris Olave. We're counting on big things from Rashid Shaheed. Is playoff contending, championship game contending kind of offense is Michael Thomas. Because that's the guy who makes every catch. That's the guy who goes underneath. That's the guy he's not a speed demon, but he's a guy who can take the ball the distance. He's your physical mismatch receiver that balances out Alvin Kamara in the passing game. So to me, Michael Thomas playing at least 10 to 12 games this season is critical. If he is out all season like he was last year, I think this team's going to be struggling just like they did the year before, and the play calling is going to be just as suspect as it was the year before because you don't have that weapon that you need on this offense. Man. I wish I wish I could say it was the weather outside, but it rained earlier. No, Jimmy Gumbo. I, I wonder the same thing too. This is it could be part of it. It's a shame too because I really. Can you hear me?
You're in and out a lot. We're limping to the finish line.
Okay, all right. It's aggravating. It's a shame too because I really into these going on. I'm showing this off to everybody, but yeah, I'm wondering if that is probably part of the problem tonight because I usually don't have it this bad. Um, Bob, who's your number 4 guy? I'm sorry, number 3 guy. We've done 4.
Three for me was Trevor Penning, and you nailed a lot of the reasons earlier when you had Penning a little bit lower on your list. The Saints invested so much in him
Mm-hmm.
that you have to see what you have out of your first round pick, and more so than that, an effective Penning will affect the entire offensive line. James Hurst is a serviceable tackle. You can get away with plugging him out there, but he's limited, like you said. And I've always said that Hurst is better suited for an inside spot, which would fit, frankly, perfectly. If when Andrus Peat goes down, or if Cesar Ruiz is a little bit slow, to recover from his own foot injury. In Trevor Penning, you have an absolute mauler in the run game, and I've kind of gotten into this with people on Facebook. Go figure. When they said that Penning was absolutely awful and awful in pass protection, and he can't be trusted. You can't say that he can't be trusted yet because he hasn't played. Is he raw there? Absolutely. Does he have the athletic ability to excel in pass protection, even on the left side? Also, absolutely. But he's going to need repetition there. Redundancy, repetitions are key for this position, especially when you are so raw. If he gets that repetition and if he develops quickly, that allows you to use Hurst now as your sixth offensive lineman, either on the edge or inside, as an injury replacement or an extra blocker in short yardage situations. Plus, having Penning out there, you slightly older people might remember how mean and nasty Kyle Turley was, and what a difference he and Willie Roaf made at the corners for that early 2000 Saints offense. Trevor Penning and Ryan Ramczyk have those same kind of abilities and capabilities on the outside. So you have to give Trevor Penning the opportunity because you invested so highly to get him. It's up to Penning to develop quickly, and if he can, I'll echo your sentiment earlier. That makes all the difference in the world for that entire Saints offensive line.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I my big thing too is the uh, the thing with Penning, like you said before. Penning has to be the guy that kind of leads this offensive line because what you said about Ryan Ramczyk. Ramczyk looks a step slower. Ramczyk looks like he is, that knee problems causing him more and more issues. You need to have, uh, Penning kind of be the leader on this offensive line. I mean, Eric McCoy is the leader right now, but I'd like to see Penning kind of take these young guys. We talked about Salvadori earlier. I think Salvadori is going to eventually supplant one of those two guards soon.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Having Penning kind of be the new face of this offensive line is huge, because the leadership qualities he can possess. I thought that's where Kyle Turley was kind of lacking because he was so temperamental. I think
Yeah.
Penning can provide more of a leadership focus on this team because I think his reputation, kind of as a short temper guy, I think that is part of his persona on the field.
Yeah.
Whereas, no, that's how Kyle Turley really was. I
Yeah.
mean, that's Kyle Turley on and off the field. Um, so yeah, I think that's important about that. So my number four guy is a guy you brought up. I mean, number three guy is a guy you brought up earlier, Demario Davis. Um, for a lot of the same reasons that you brought up, um, Demario Davis, they need to have one more year out of him because this is the guy who I now have him as my number 4A linebacker, greatest linebacker all time on the Saints roster. I have him now surpassing Jonathan Vilma
Same.
because of the longevity. Um, Vilma had two great years with the Saints, but his knee injury started coming back. He wasn't as productive as he was earlier in his career with the Saints. Demario Davis, you've seen a little bit of drop off because of age, but not because of injury.
Hmm.
So he needs to step up and be the leader on that defense because we've already talked about Pete Werner. I don't know who the other linebacker is. If he's off, I don't know who can step up as the stud linebacker.
Hmm.
It just, to me, he's critical because I have it this way: I have Jordan, Davis, and Lattimore as the three most important players in that defense. And those three have to play the bulk of those 17 games.
Yes.
And the rest of them, yes, there are important people, but those three have to be there week in and week out, just like we talk about, Thomas, Kamara, and, the offensive guys. These three guys on defense are your guys. These are the guys that make or break the team. One of the things I remember Ricky Jackson saying when he was playing for the Saints is, and the other linebacker would talk about this, Vaughn Johnson, Pat Swilling and stuff. Ricky Jackson would say, "I'm gonna get a turnover right now." And it's time. We got to step up. I'm gonna go get me a sack. I'm gonna make a play right now to dictate this game. And there's Ricky Jackson right there. In fact, bringing down Jim McMahon. Ricky Jackson would go out there and do it. That's leadership. That's a deciding player. So that's what you need. That's what you get out of Demario Davis. That's what you get out of Cam Jordan. That's what you get out of Lattimore. That's what you need to be a successful team. Yes, Jimmy Gumbo. I do remember that that Stitchcomb took a little while to to get going, and unfortunately, Stitchcomb also is the guy who, when it was time for him to quit playing, it was a drop. It was
Yeah.
like you're Pro Bowl level, and then you're not even journeyman level anymore. It was frightening how that changed so rapidly. But yeah, Stitchcomb did take a year or so to get going. Um, Actually, I do, Matt. I do want to hear your trivia question, but I want to get through the rest of this list first before we go completely black. um, Real quick, then, your number two.
Number two, Michael Thomas. Uh, yeah, hey, listen, we know Kamara is still going to be the focal point of this offense when he's on the field. Um, Olave looks like a perennial Pro Bowler. Rashid Shaheed, big play threat, underrated route precision. But nobody, and I mean nobody, gives this offense what Michael Thomas can when he's healthy. To me, still the most precise route runner, intermediate route runner in the National Football League. He adds a physical element in the middle of the field and along the sidelines. He's not just a slant runner, folks. Middle of the field and on the sidelines, a security blanket for Carr at quarterback. Michael Thomas just takes this offense to a new level. He's missed 40 of the last 50 regular season games, which is mind-boggling if you think about it. What you said before about this offense being a different beast. If Michael Thomas is even on the field, at 80 to 90%. For 10 or 12 games, that's a difference maker for this offense, and I fully agree. And I do believe that we'll see a rejuvenated Michael Thomas with a chip on his shoulder, playing for money and playing to shut people up this year. But it needs to happen. He's got to play at least minimum of 12, 13, 14 games for this offense.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I've talked about him before, but I'll just say this: go back and watch that 2018 Saints Rams regular season game. Do not watch that god awful championship game. You watch that regular season game. Michael Thomas has got uh, Marcus Peters spinning, and it's one of the reasons why Marcus Peters got traded from the
Hmm.
Rams. Um, Thomas ate his lunch. You watch the 2017 divisional playoff game, the second half, except for the last 10 seconds, when you have Thomas versus Xavier Rhodes, and Rhodes was having a all-pro year.
Yeah.
Thomas has got him crying. He is literally crying on the field. He's pissed at Thomas. Thomas is all in his head, and Thomas is just eating his lunch in that second half. That game frustrates me because for a half that was probably the greatest play called game by Sean Payton and executed by Drew Brees since, in my opinion, the 2006 Dallas Saints game. As far as just calling the right plays at the right time to exploit a good defense. It was just a masterpiece because they weren't the Vikings had no clue what the Saints were doing, and they would try different things, and it would fool Drew for a couple plays, and then he would get them on another play, and it just if that 10 seconds doesn't happen, it's just the greatest comeback by a Saints team, and I love it because it was against Minnesota, So yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And Thomas gets 2 of the 3 touchdowns in that second half. Okay, then I've talked about Cam earlier. Cam Jordan, just like you said, we need another year of all-pro Cam Jordan. We need another year of Cam Jordan making the plays he needs to make when he has to make them. His sacks, his ability to pressure the quarterback, his ability to play the run. We need to have that. We can't have him suddenly become old. He's the leader of that team. I don't need him to do it for 17 weeks, but I need him to be out there when we need him. Especially with Foskey being a rookie. You've got Passanio and you've got Granderson. They can be rotational guys, but you don't want them out there for a long time. And Cam is missed only 2 games his entire Saints career. And one of them, he actually still tried to go out there and play. He modified his helmet. And they said, no, man, your eye's going to come out of your socket. You can't go out there and play. The other one obviously was COVID. But, yeah, his durability, to me, like I said that Demario Davis was number 4A as far as linebackers, Dome Patrol linebackers are the top 4. Cam Jordan is number 1 as far as all-time defensive lineman for the Saints.
Yeah.
And that's over – Wayne Martin and Joe Johnson, a lot of great linemen that played for this team, but Cam Jordan's that good, and we just need one more year out of him. So I have a feeling both you and I have as our number 1 the same guy. Who's your number 1 guy?
You got to go with the quarterback, don't you? Derek Carr.
Yes.
In 34 games since Drew Brees retired, the Saints have used 5 different quarterbacks, 6 different quarterbacks, really. Very few of them with any success, no consistent success. The Saints are betting $100 million in guaranteed money that Derek Carr can be that guy. He's the guy that Dennis Allen wanted. He's the guy that Mickey Loomis wanted. He's the guy that Pete Carmichael wanted to run their system. So, again, they bet $100 million that Derek Carr can be effective in this offense with the way they want to run this offense. A very, check with me, very fluid, very quick-paced, very intellectual player behind the center. That's the guy that's going to get the ball to the Alvin Kamara's, the Jamal Williams, Jawan Johnsons, Foster Moreau, all the weapons that they brought in. That's the guy that needs to make this run. And it's whether the Saints season is a success or not is going to be judged fairly or not fairly. It's going to be judged at the quarterback position at the end of this season.
Absolutely. I have the same thing. This is the guy you brought in. you said one of the reasons why your offense has struggled is because you don't have a quarterback who can run this system well. You brought John Gruden in to help you design some of the offensive plays. Absolutely, you need to have a great season out of Derek Carr. He's my most important player too, because if Derek Carr doesn't work and the Saints don't do better than 7 or 10, you're looking at a revamped coaching staff. You're looking at a blown
Yep.
up roster. I do not envision a scenario where Jameis Winston never gets a shot to be a starter again for this team. Um, he may come in if someone's injured. He may
Hmm.
come in if the Saints have this great season and they don't they can rest their starters for a game. But right now, I just cannot see any world where um, Carr is not the man for all 17 games, sink or swim.
Hmm.
Um, and to me, that's what's important, because it's not that Carr is a franchise quarterback, but he's going to be this team's franchise quarterback right now.
Hmm.
And that's just the way this team is going to be built. And if he's a problem, then that's another issue for next year. But right now, it's just going to be, yeah, I did see this comment. Uh, Miles Sanders says Andy Dalton's a future Hall of Famer. They have Hall of Fame for mediocre players, yeah. Um, you know, Andy Dalton. I'm just going to say this right now. Andy Dalton had one of his career years as a Saints quarterback, and people wanted to kill him at certain points
Yeah.
during the year. So um, I had Bengal fans telling me over and over during the season, "This is what you get with Andy Dalton. You got to
Hmm.
realize this. We saw it all the time, and he was younger then. So I don't knock Andy. I realize Andy's limitations, but yeah, that's just insane. That's just insane. So,
Hmm.
all right. So Matt's got a trivia question he wants to throw up, and I've been thinking about this for a while since I saw it. During the 2003 season, the Saints switched from AstroTurf to artificial turf. Who was the last team the Saints played with the old AstroTurf? Um, and when I'm thinking AstroTurf, I'm thinking that green carpet, not the
Yeah.
not the field turf that we saw. So it would be the last home game from the 2003 season.
I don't know. This
Um,
this is just a complete guess on my part, but I'm just going to throw out a guess that it'll be the St. Louis Rams.
2002. 2000 was a Panthers game. I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm just, this is just a complete guess on my part, but I'm going to guess that it's the
What was
St.
that you
Louis
said, Bob?
Rams. St. Louis Rams.
Okay. Um, I'm going to say, I know Carolina was the last game in 2002. I'm going to say it was probably, I'm going to go with Carolina in 2003. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I'm going to go with one of those two games. Um, let's see something real quick. Uh, 2003. I don't know if Matt's still on here or not. Oh, look at this. I guessed right, but it wasn't the last game of the season. Um, Carolina Panthers mid-season. Yeah, that was in October, because they went on the road against Tampa. They played in Atlanta, at Philadelphia at the Vet, at the Redskins, home against Tampa, and they had a different turf. Giants at home. the River City Relay against Jacksonville. And I forgot we played the Cowboys at the end of the season in 2003. Wow. Okay. And
I was
I don't
it was a
remember
little
the
guess.
turf changing mid-season.
No.
Yeah. Well, I figured we probably ended the season with one of the NFC South teams and grass. So I know Tampa has grass, so I
Yeah.
imagine it's got to be the Panthers, and not the Falcons. So, um, yeah, the Giants cell phone game. Yeah, that the River City Relay came up the other day on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. They put the
It did.
highlights of that, little lowlights of that up there. And I said, and they're like, that encapsulates the life of a Saints fan. A great play, and you miss the extra point, and you lose the game. Um, I said, but it also encapsulates why people hate Aaron Brooks as much as they do.
Yeah.
Because the week before, he dropped 5 touchdown passes on the Giants, who were just as bad as the Panthers, as the Jaguars were. And he was almost perfect in that game. It just
Hmm.
was a demolition, and it's like that's the best of Brooks. Then he's playing against the the and getting you're getting out of that only 1 touchdown, and it's only because the Saints picked off Byron Leftwich on the 8 yard line of the Jaguars, so he threw a touchdown pass there. But it was like 2 punts, 3 punts, 2 turnovers on downs, and a
Hmm.
fumble. That was all the other drives between the 1 touchdown drive and the drive that the other touchdown, which was the City Relay.
Yeah.
So you're like, what the hell? Did we see all of Aaron Brooks' touchdown passes in one game? You got nothing for the other one. So yeah, that's why that's what drove fans crazier
Yep.
than the smiling after interceptions and that stuff. It's just that wild pendulum swing of quarterback play. Um, yeah, the 49ers game, I do remember that game too because in 2001, the 49ers kicked the crap out of us and they beat them
Hmm.
in 2002. Uh, anyway, oh, what's this? Okay. Oh, that's why. Okay. Oh, you get to hear your favorite music. The
Yeah.
NFL. I tell you what,
Yeah.
NFL prime time back in the day, that was fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
And depending on the music that you heard, that's how you knew what kind of game this was going to be. You heard that
I
dun
know.
dun 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 dun. If you heard the highlight music, it was dun 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 dun. You knew that it was going to be nothing but an air assault, just
Yep.
and a running gun kind of game. You know, they had the other music they would play. It's going to be a slugfest.
Hmm.
It's going to be low scoring, lots of running, and I just really enjoyed all the nicknames that Chris Berman would come up
Yeah.
with. Bobby, Siskel, and Abert. So, and unfortunately, I was a parent that made my son watch these things too. So that's why he loves looking at these things too, as well. Did I ever tell you that I have a guy, Phil Boyd? He gave me a collection of VHS tapes. It's Saints games from like the mid '90s to the early 2000s. I think it's up to
Wow.
2005 VHS tapes. I've got three boxes of this stuff. I'm
Wow.
trying to decide whether or not I want to convert these things into onto DVD, and it's like every game, and it tells me the thing. Week 15, Saints versus whatever that year, and I'm
Nice.
looking at it going, yeah, I ain't gonna watch that game. But yeah,
Right.
he couldn't. He didn't have anything else to do with them. Yeah, he didn't know what else to do with them, so he's like, I'm gonna throw them out because I have nothing to play them on. I'm like, just give them to me. I'll figure out something to do with them. um, yeah, it just it. I was really touched that he gave those to me. So yeah, Oh yeah, we don't talk about that Vikings game in 2002 because that's the only time they ever wore the gold jerseys too. So every time somebody says the Saints should wear the gold jerseys, I'm like, you realize, of course, that Tom Benson so hated those things that I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off and see if it does make an impact on this. Um, Tom Benson so hated those gold jerseys that he auctioned them off immediately after the game, and they were never going to wear those jerseys again.
Nope.
So yeah, rumbling, bumbling, stumbling. That's a good one too. And he could go all the way. you know, uh, that and what was the name of that receiver for the Giants? Chris Cab Calloway. Howdy, 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 hi, howdy, 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 ho.
Hmm.
They do that, and the Browns had a receiver named Michael Jackson. Every time that Michael Jackson caught a pass, Tom Jackson would go hee hee.
I love Tom Jackson every bit as much as I love Chris Berman. Especially if it was a Hail Mary, Berman would go, and Tom, what do they do? Knock it down.
Mm-hmm.
Or and there are plenty of people played with
Oh,
Louisville, but whenever a guy would make a big play,
yeah.
Tom would stop, or they would stop and go, and Ernest Givens from Louisville. All right, we're
Well,
limping. We're
yeah.
limping. We're limping to the
Yep.
finish
Every
line here.
time, and no one circles the wagon like.
Mm.
Yeah, that and no one circles the wagons like the
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills, and
Yep.
I, you know, I I watch old Saints games a lot, and I watched some 49 the Saints 49ers from 87 and the Saints 49ers from 88 and
Mm.
89, and oh my God, A Bear just drives you insane with some of these passes he throws. Um, I get it that they went to the playoffs and they won a lot of games, and it wasn't just the defense. The defense was a big part of it, but it wasn't just the
Mhm.
defense. There's some shit that A Bear would do out there that if Twitter existed back then, A Bear would be roasted alive for these things.
Yes, sir.
People just kind of blow off now because they're like, yeah, well, Bobby, who that nation, he's great, and oh, that's a good one. I forgot about that. Um, Jerry, Joseph, live and let her die. That was a good one. That was a really good one. My favorite was a baseball player, Bert. Be home by 11. That was
Yeah.
that was just a great nickname. Um, yeah, yeah. Saints Falcons. Eddie Kennison beats Ray Buchanan. Berman says from Louisville. Yeah, not Eddie Kennison, Ray Buchanan. Um, Jake, daylight come and you got a Delome. Yep. Yeah, and Jake was my alum, my old college. So yeah, I gave him that stuff. So, oh yeah, absolutely. Chris Berman it was just a lot of fun, and they've tried to bring back prime time. It wasn't quite the same. I know Tom Jackson retired, and I can't even watch a Booger McFarland
Nope.
because he just doesn't play off of Berman the way when those two were really just going. In fact, I used to get mad when Robin Roberts she would get stuck with the bad games. And
Yeah.
Robin Roberts would do these games, and it's just like you're like, damn, we got Robin
Yeah.
Roberts. Why can't we get Berman to do our game? Um, yeah, Joe Little Bighorn. Yeah, he liked those names. The Saints had a few of them.
Hmm.
Not a whole lot, but he had a few of them on there. What did he call Bobby Siskel and Abear? He had one more. I can't think of who it is. It'll come to me later. It was a player. Wasn't much of a player long for the Saints, but he had a good. They will come up with a good nickname for him. One day I'm gonna have to go through them all and just go through all my nicknames that I heard about. But yeah, I've got the 1991 primetime highlights. I sat there at 11 o'clock at night
Mm-hmm.
Central Time with the VCR because I'd already seen
Mm-hmm.
the NFL prime time at 6. So I knew when it came on again at 11 when the Saints were going to be on during that time. So I would sit there with my VHS recorder and my remote control and I hit record so I get
Yep.
the Saints highlights and then stop record on that. The only problem you would get is if I did it at the back end of the videotape and would back wind a little bit and would tape
Yeah.
over a little bit of what I just had.
Yeah.
Yeah, that aggravated me. So
Yeah. The life of a VCR owner. I miss it.
yeah, yeah. You kids just don't know that.
You just don't know.
John Carney. That's what it was. Yeah, it just on it. John Carney, Sheila McRae. Good night, everyone. He'd
Yep.
say the whole honeymooners. Yeah. And Vilma. Yeah, I do remember him doing that too for Jonathan Vilma.
All right,
So,
ladies and gents, I am
anyway,
calling it a
all
night.
right. So it apparently was a little bit of my yeah, you got. I know you are. We're dragging this out too far. Real quick, what do you have going on in Bayou Blitz tomorrow night?
We're hoping to give you guys some good news about an Isaiah Foskey signing, and yeah, we're going to get into whether all the new faces that the Saints added this offseason, who they're replacing, whether you believe it's an upgrade or not, and we'll give you our thoughts. Some of the quarterback position, other positions are obvious. Some not so obvious, the people aren't thinking about or talking enough about. So we're going to get into that a little bit more, and maybe early training camp battle previews too.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, next Tuesday, all the players show up, so training camp officially starts. Well, they do their physicals, and then I think that Thursday they have their first kind of walkthrough practice. But
Mm-hmm.
Friday is the first real, padded practice. So it's on now. So we won't be struggling
Mm-hmm.
for content anymore. Neither will you guys.
Right.
So everybody, check out Bob on the Bayou Blitz. I kept him up. It's now 10:45 his time. He's fading fast. So thank y'all for joining us. We'll see you next time under the dome. Good night, everybody.